Asiana Airlines Flight 214 was a trans-Pacific flight from Incheon International Airport to San Francisco International Airport. The flight was being operated by a 7-year-old Boeing 777-200ER. The plane had a registration of Hotel Lima 7742, had two Pratt & Whitney PW 4090 engines, and had accumulated 37,120 flight cycles. On long-haul flights, like this one, planes typically have two flight crews, one for takeoff and landing, and the other for the cruise stage. The flight crew during the takeoff and landing, or primary crew, consisted of 49-year-old Captain Lee Jong-min and 45-year-old Lee Kang-kook. Lee Jong-min held 12,387 total flight hours, including 3,200 in the Boeing 777. He was pilot in command and was sitting in the right-hand seat, for reasons I will get into later. He was the pilot monitoring. In the left-hand seat was Lee Kang-kook. He had 9,793 flight hours, including only 43 on the 777 over 9 consecutive flights. He was the pilot flying. The relief crew consisted of 42-year-old Lee Jong-jo and 40-year-old Bog Dong-wong. The flight had a total of 307 souls on board, 291 passengers, and 16 crew. The flight up until this point had lasted around 10 hours and 25 minutes and was expected to land at 11:28 a.m., or in about 23 minutes. Now, you need to know some things before we land. First, Captain Lee Jong-min, the pilot monitoring, was a check instructor who was overviewing Lee Kang-kook, the pilot flying, as he was new to the 777 and was trying to get his type certification. Second, runway 28 left at San Francisco did not have a working ILS, or Instrument Landing System, which typically helps pilots land. However, it is not needed to land, especially on clear days where you can see the runway and PAPI lights from afar, like today. PAPI lights are a set of 4 lights on the side of the runway that can tell a pilot how high or low they are. 4 white lights means you're too high. 4 red lights means you are too low. 2 white and 2 red means you're on the glide slope, or on glide. At 11:21 a.m. and roughly 15 miles from the airport, NorCal Approach clears the flight for a visual approach to runway 28 left, and then handed the plane off to San Francisco Tower 5 minutes later. At 11:24 and roughly 8 miles from the airport, the flight crew realized the plane was way above the glide slope. 2 seconds later, the vertical speed was changed from -300 to -900 feet per minute, and a moment later was changed again to -1,000 feet per minute. At the same time, the speed mode was changed from 180 to 172 knots. The speed remained high at 190 to 185 knots for the next 45 seconds. At 11:24, 55 seconds, the pilot monitoring stated, "This seems a little high," followed by the pilot flying stating, "Yeah." The pilot monitoring stated again, "This should be a bit high," followed by the pilot flying stating, "Do you mean it's too high? I'll descend more." The vertical speed was then changed to -1,500 feet per minute. At 11:25, 23 seconds, the vertical speed was changed back to -1,000 feet per minute. At 11:25, 43 seconds, the altitude mode was changed to 3,000 feet, and the pilot monitoring stated the missed approach altitude was set. At 11:25, 56 seconds, and 5 miles to the runway, the plane was still well above the glide path by about 400 feet. To get the plane to descend faster, the pilot flying selected the flight level change speed mode and changed the speed to 152 knots. Seconds later, the plane started to level off and climb. 4 seconds after the start of the climb, the autopilot was disconnected, resulting in the autothrottle switching to the hold mode. The pilot flying was now hand flying the airplane. At this point, the plane was 3.5 nautical miles from the runway, and at 1,500 feet. At 11:26, 44 seconds, the pilot monitoring stated, "It's high." A second later, the vertical speed was increased to 1,500 feet per minute. At 11:26, 54 seconds, The radio altimeter called out 1,000. The plane was still 200 feet above the glide slope. The PAPI lights were still at this point 4 white. At 11:27 and 7 seconds, San Francisco Tower cleared Flight 214 to land. The plane was 1.5 nautical miles from the runway. At 11:27, 19 seconds, the pilot monitoring stated, "On glide path, sir." The PAPI lights now had 2 white, 2 red. However, the plane did not arrest its descent.
Asiana 214, show final.
Asiana 214, Heavy San Francisco Tower, and we clear left, clear land.
Clear and clear left, Asiana 214.
Sierra Foxtrot, radar contact, passing 600.
Just before 11:28 a.m., the tail of Asiana Airlines 214 hits the seawall just before the runway, causing the tail of the aircraft to break off. The 777 then continued forward for a few seconds before veering left and spinning 330 degrees on its left wing and nose before coming to a stop on its belly. The NTSB determined that the pilots failed to follow the glide slope and flew the plane into the seawall just before the runway. The NTSB also determined that the pilots thought the plane's autothrottle would maintain the speed and prevent the loss of additional airspeed and a subsequent stall, however failed to notice the autothrottle go into hold mode after the flight crew switched the autopilot into flight level change, in which stall protection is disabled.